talking about the karma we create with the Dharma, and especially some of the things to be mindful of that are disrespectful on a physical level to the Dharma. It's important here to remember that we're not worshiping material things, but rather the Dharma books explain the path to awakening, and so it's because we have reverence and aspiration for the path of awakening that we take good care of the books that explain them, you know? So we're not just worshiping material objects, but really thinking of the, what they're teaching us, okay? So I mentioned yesterday putting our Dharma texts on top of our cushions and carrying them together, putting our Dharma texts on the floor, and so that's why we, either have a small table or we put a cloth underneath our Dharma texts. Okay, stepping over Dharma texts. Yeah, we should always keep them high on an upper shelf. And actually, technically speaking, they're supposed to be on our altar higher than the Buddha. Yeah, because the Buddha's speech is the main way that the Buddha communicates with us. So we hold the Buddha's speech, represented by the texts, as the highest of between the body, speech, and mind, because that's the one we benefit from most directly. Okay, so keeping them on a high shelf, keeping them clean, so dusting them often. Don't put them on, a lower shelf with your murder mysteries above them, or mix them on the same shelf with your sci-fi, books, or your, books on, how to make dentures and things like that, your professional books. Okay, you don't put things on top of your Dharma text, including your mala. Yeah, you keep your mala off to the side or under the text or something like that. Also your glasses, it's very easy when you're reading your glass to take them off and put them on top of the book. Put your coffee cup on top of the book. None of these things, we really hold the books in high regard. And when you read these books and you see how they inspire your mind, then of course you want to treat them well. Okay, then also selling the Dharma text to make a living. Okay, so this really depends on your motivation. They usually say, because in old Tibet, if you published books, people made donations to support the publishing of books, so the books weren't sold. In our economy now, to really get Dharma books out there, you have to publish. I mean, that's why I went to an American publishing company, because when I first did books in Singapore for free distribution, they only went to Singaporeans, So you have to do it that way. But then for the people who are the publishing company, it's very important that they have a motivation to really spread the Dharma and benefit sentient beings. Because otherwise, if you're just printing the Dharma books and selling them with the same kind of mentality as, selling used cars, how can I sell the most? How can I make the most money? How can I beat out my competitor? Then that's certainly the wrong motivation. Yeah. And so, likewise, when people make donations for printing Dharma books, then you have to use all that money for the Dharma books. If there's extra left over, you can keep it aside for printing more Dharma books, or you could check with the benefactor and ask them how to use it. Okay, trading Dharma texts for material things, I'll give you a Dharma book, but, give me your jazz CD, something like that. So basically thinking of texts only as material things, with material value, instead of thinking of them with the Dharma value and how they really benefit our mind. Throwing Dharma materials in the rubbish afterwards, or taking flyers about a Dharma event and you use it to line your trash can and certain things like that. Actually, what it says is the whole written word to really respect. But now, we have written words on our shoes, and it's hard. We're always walking across written words in our culture. So at least the Dharma materials, if we have old books or Dharma flyers or newsletters, things with Dharma words in them, then they can be recycled or they should be burnt. So people in the office should really be aware, things addressed to us, Sravasti Abbey. Sravasti is the place where the Buddha taught for 25 rainy seasons. Those labels on letters, on packages, we don't just throw in the rubbish, we should peel them off or cut them off and then either recycle them or burn them. Okay, so please be aware of that kind of thing. So with Dharma materials, it's good to wrap them either in a cloth, like we do, or they're in, what do you call it? Some kind of a case, or put them in plastic, in a Ziploc bag, something to protect them, when you're carrying them places, or if you put them in the bag, make sure that they're not touching your old tissue and your, all kinds of dirty things, but keep the Dharma text very, very nicely. Okay, so we want to make sure in brief, in general, that we respect the actual Dharma, which is the true cessations and the true paths, and that we, due to that, we respect the teachings that teach how to generate the true paths and true cessations in our mind. And due to respecting the teachings, then we respect the physical things that also convey the teachings. So this could also include Dharma CDs or videos, anything that is explaining or teaching the Dharma, to really treat it very well. Like I said, not step over it, not put things on top, and it's actually quite important to do this, and it's a real mindfulness practice about how do I relate to Dharma materials. You can eat or drink while you're studying, but you don't want to dribble stuff all over the book. So you're commenting on our proclivity to accumulate a lot of Dharma books and then not use them. And then other people don't get to use them. And so you're saying, because we have a policy here at the Abbey that individually you're allowed to keep like one bookshelf for books for yourself, and then the others you give to the library or donate or whatever so that other people can use them. So it is a good thing, because that way we make sure that the books get used, and with your Dharma books too, you don't doodle in your Dharma books, and draw pictures and things like that. Some teachers say if you underline or highlight things, think that you're offering color, to the Dharma. But you don't use it to write phone numbers in the back of your Dharma books and to-do lists and then tear out a page and but really treat the books well. So the best way to pack our Dharma books when we travel is if we can put them on the top, but then, they put the suitcase in and sometimes it's upside down in this way. So I think the best thing is just to wrap it in something protective and then you put it in your suitcase, and whichever way you put it, you don't know that it's necessarily going to be the highest thing. What I try and do when I travel is pack it in a bag that I can put up on top. Sometimes that's not always possible, but I try not to put things with Dharma materials under my seat. It's not always possible, but you do your best. So our kiddies like to sit on the books. So this is difficult, because, on one hand their tush is on the book, Yeah, but they do this so often, and you don't want to shoo them away because, kind of it's a Dharma book. It's nice that they have some contact. So what I usually do is I imagine that the realizations are going upwards, radiating out of the box into the kitties, out of the books into the kitties. Because they say a lot of this has to do with your motivation, because there's, tomorrow we'll talk about the Buddha and, how to deal with images of the Buddha. But there's one story there about somebody was walking along the road, and there was a Buddha statue at the side of the road, and there was an old shoe lying around, and it was starting to rain. And this person felt, oh my goodness, the Buddha statue representing the Buddha, our teacher, is getting rained on. So he took the shoe and he put it on top of the Buddha statue to protect it from the rain. Then so he had a good motivation. Then later, it stopped raining. Another person walked by and said, who put this old shoe on top of the Buddha statue, and took it off? So that person too had a good motivation. Yeah. So I think a lot has to do with, how you see it. And, thinking our kiddies are getting some Dharma blessing instead of on the top of their head, from underneath. Your responsibility is to do your best to treat these things respectfully. What other people do, you can't control. You've often noticed, though, that people who publish Dharma books, in the end, they'll put in a little something at the back about how to care for a Dharma book. Yeah, but with flyers, it's hard to know. And you can't control what people do, so you just kind of hope for the best. Well, you can't burn and recycle. You well, I know. The things you recycle, and in my mind, what you can't recycle, you burn. I think we can put it in the furnace, yeah. Usually, we don't do that unless it's something small. We usually wait and put big things in until the end of the year because it's not so good for our chimney, yeah. But